Well, my dude, we have ourselves a big, bulky mailbag for Monday morning mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon. Let me tell you.
I think the preferred term is girthy.
I was going to say, are you impressed with my restraint on not using the term girthy there?
Yes, but I know we have an
Bulky was
audience who's going
better.
to be expecting it. They're going to be,
Oh, yes,
they
that's right.
loved when you
We've
said
already
girthy.
we've already set our standards.
Yeah.
Good morning. Welcome to the Walk Off. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by Adam Mack. This is going to be a sad and a frustrated and a fed up mailbag. We have a pile of comments. I do want to start with just saying thank you very much to everyone who has followed us along for the season. Both Adam and I are, what's the best way of putting it? Really just two dummies who like baseball, and how many of you follow along is pretty humbling and pretty cool. You can always join our Discord, which is free, by the way. The link is in the show notes. Piles of rabid Blue Jays fans in there. You can follow us on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast. So feel free to DM us if you have any questions or comments you want addressed on next week's mailbag, or Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. Of course, a tip of the hat and much love to all of our Patreon who show so much support for us throughout the season. So we really do thank all of you. We're going to get to the list of names, which has continued to grow all season long. Of course, we're very appreciative of that. We'll read that off at the end. All right, my dude. No use in dragging this out. Let's get into it because we've got a pile of interaction throughout the week.
Yeah. Well over like 300 comments just on YouTube alone over the weekend. Obviously, a lot of redundancies. There was 4 or 5 main themes to most of the comments. So we're pretty much going to cover what every comment was, but we might not get to your comment specifically because it was said 700 times. First one comes in from HU on YouTube, who says pain. Summed it up nicely.
That's brevity at its best there, yes.
There you go. All right. Moving on, though, to our Discord, Mustard Tiger says, I was going to send both of you a DM, but I figured I'd just put it in here. Scott and Adam, thanks for the great year. You boys are both awesome. The time and effort you both put in into it, all of this for basically nothing, is admirable. I've enjoyed and appreciated it all. I hope you keep it up. Can't wait to have my heart broken with you guys next year.
Hopefully that's not how it plays out, Mustard Tiger. And again, nothing but appreciation for everyone who follows along. It was actually really heartwarming, man. We did get a lot of DMs and a lot of comments just thanking us for the season. And even on that little post that Mustard Tiger put, there was over 20 folks who had hearted and thumbed up, and the hands emoji where they're like, oh, hands. Yeah, so it's again,
I need a gif of you doing this. I need to clip that and make that a gif that I can send out. Oh man, I did get a DM too. This isn't in my notes here, but someone had asked me on Instagram. They said, hey, you said that you were going to tell us what instrument you bought in college.
Oh, yeah.
You never did. So for anybody new here that didn't catch that episode, this won't make any sense, but my instrument of choice was a harmonica. I thought I could be
I didn't even
piano
guess.
man.
Like, yeah, I like it.
Go.
Awesome.
There you go. All right. On Twitter, Jenna for the win DM'd us and said, hey guys, thanks for the great season of content. It's 2 days after that loss, and I'm still so upset. I feel like I'm in mourning. Any chance on the mailbag you put some positivity out there for us? Nope.
Honestly, Jenna, you summed it up so well. It honestly feels like we are mourning, like it is like we lost someone special, and in a really frustrating way, obviously. Positivity is going to be tough here. One thing I will say is, don't forget how young this team is. I know that's a really easy thing to do, and I'm sure everyone listening to this is frustrated even hearing this pointed out. But I mean, Alejandro Kirk is still 23 years old. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is turning 24. Bo Bichette is 24. And just to put in perspective here, in Guerrero, Bichette, and Kirk, they have 3 hitters under 25 who all posted an OPS plus of 125 or more. Just to put that in perspective, that has only happened one other time in baseball in 1964 with Rico Cardi, Joe Torre, and I'm going to mispronounce this, but Dennis Menke. Like, that's a long time ago. So, yeah, they lost in the most heartbreaking, frustrating fashion you can possibly do. But they are young, and this is going to add to the experience, and you're like, enough positivity, Scott.
No, I mean, we are okay. We're live on YouTube right now. It is just after noon Eastern time, and just there's a comment here in the live chat from Warloo22. It says, for those who are down on Vlad, name the players 23 and under that are better. Don't worry, I'll wait. Yeah,
it's a great comment. It's a great comment. And listen, the heartbreak and the frustration obviously clouds any sort of logical thinking right now. I mean, Jenna even summed it up, right? It's 2 days later. It's 3 days later now. She messaged us yesterday. But, you know, like, we're only 72 hours out from this. So it is kind of difficult to sit down and be unbiased and not just let... We had so much hope for this freaking team. You know, and we at least expected them to get past the wild card series. I know Houston is a juggernaut waiting, and personally, I don't think that this team was good enough to beat the Astros. Now, Ben Ennis, who we had on the show last night, was incredibly generous with his time. He felt differently. He felt like this team against the Astros very well could have competed. But Adam and I talked about this for months, right? If you can't get past the wild card series, good luck with Houston. And...
okay, hold on.
I gotta anyone in the playoffs. Yes.
Our conversation with Ben Ennis frustrated me, and I had to rein myself in because he was a guest. He was generous with his time, and again, we're 72 hours fresh of the passing here, so I do have to mind my words. But the whole we had a chance against Houston is kind of a like sure, anybody has a chance against anybody, and I don't accept that as a strategy to win. You know,
yeah,
it's just not. I don't know. It's frustrating.
There is truth to it. That's what's frustrating. There is truth to it, but I agree with you. It's pretty frustrating to just to imagine this front office taking the approach of, well, as long as we can get into the playoffs, let's roll the dice, right?
I'd rather... we're a 92-win team. We're going to have a more balanced schedule next year. And then who knows? As long as we make it to the playoffs, anybody can win.
And in Ben Ennis's defense, he did make it very clear that the biggest problem with this team this year was not winning the division. And that is true, right? If you can skip the wild card, that is what you should be aiming to do, and that is hopefully what the 2023 Blue Jays set their sights on. And obviously, they had their sights set on that. But listen, young team, maybe they just... I don't even know.
I know, we're grasping at straws to make ourselves feel better.
I feel like I'm defending them, but I'm not defending them, right? Like, I'm as frustrated as everyone else with this team. But also, I'm going to be very honest here. I do not think blowing everything up is the way to go about fixing this.
Okay. Blowing everything up. I want to we'll get to the rest of the mailbag here in a second. This might be an hour and a half mailbag. I apologize in advance. Blowing it up, right? A lot of the comments that I went through over the weekend, it's like not everybody can agree on what does blowing it up mean.
Yes.
Right? Because there were a lot of comments like, yeah, I think this team is close and I don't want to have a big change in the off season. But then that same comment would go on to list the like 5 things that we need to improve.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I don't think we need to have 3 catchers, or I do need to think we have 3 catchers. We need a left-handed this. We need a left-handed that. We need more starting pitching. We need to get rid of this guy. And it's like,
we should fire John Schneider. We should
like,
move Bo
blowing the
Bichette.
team
I don't want to
up,
do too
right?
much. This team is so close, but
exactly, right? So I think we just do need to brace for the fact that like we all have our favorite guys, right? Maybe you're an Alejandro Kirk guy. Maybe you're a Bo Bichette guy. Maybe you're a Teoscar fan, and you've been a Teoscar fan for years now. Someone's probably going to be gone that is going to be a painful loss this offseason. There's a number of guys who could be gone. We have really a whole offseason to speculate. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on that today because, like I said, we do have a lot to talk about. But there's going to be some uncomfortable changes, I think, coming this offseason. All right. Here's a note of positivity from S. Leave It on our YouTube page. This was a tough loss, but come on, people. Who's ever played sports and hasn't had anything go wrong all at once? Looking forward to next year, and we'll be supporting these young men once again. Only those that sit around and just talk about it would dare put them down for their gigantic effort just to get in the playoffs at all. So there's some positivity for you.
What a level-headed response.
I hate it.
Me too. But a lot of truth there, And I think one thing that Ben Ennis did make a good point about is that adding a year of experience to this core is only going to help. It truly is. I know that that is the worst little bit of shining light that you can take from this season. But dynasties are not built in a day. Like it truly is the case. And I mean, even if you take this Houston Astros team that has been, I think, this is their 7th year in a row going to the playoffs. It's incredible what they have done. I mean, they've been to, including 2017, I think, and don't quote me, I could be wrong, but I think it's 4 World Series. Maybe it's 3. Either way, like the Houston Astros didn't happen overnight, and they had to lose 100-plus games, something like 4 or 5 seasons. Like, it was disgusting how bad they were for almost a decade to accumulate all of the prospects that they needed to build this team. And then it's been really good management since. Sorry, Adam, go ahead, and I know you keep...
I have the Houston Astros playoff history pulled up here. So you mentioned the 2011 to 2013 years where they were losing 100-plus games. 2014, they lost 92. 2015, they were 10 games over 500, and they lost in the ALDS. They did win the first round, the wild card round there. The next year, they missed the playoffs in 2016. The year after that, 101 wins, and they won the World Series, 2017. And then, basically every year since then, they've been 100 wins or so and going deep in the playoffs. So,
and don't be fooled by that 2020 season. Okay, the Blue Jays made the playoffs because there were 16 teams that made the playoffs that year. And
is that it?
That
felt like
is
more.
That all? Is that all of them? Just over half? Yeah. So 16 teams made the playoffs that year. It was a 60-game season, and I honestly believe had it been a 162-game season, that Blue Jays team probably was a 500 team at best. They finished, I think it was 4 games above 500 and just slid into that 8th spot, but that was not a playoff team. 2021, perhaps that was a playoff team, and just a lot of bad luck with how good the division was that season.
Last
Made
year.
the playoffs this year, right? Like we are talking incremental increases each year. Again, I'm well aware of how frustrating it is to try and shine a positive light on this, but
last year, 91 wins. All off season. We did our expectations for this team. I expected 98 pushing 100 wins.
Yeah, me too.
The addition of Chapman, Gossman and Ray kind of canceled each other out. But I did think that this, young core was going to take that developmental step forward, they would have learned from their soft losses last year and not let so many of those wins fall from their hands. It didn't happen this year. Again, we put together a wicked hot September that I think makes
saved the season.
It makes our final record look a lot better than we probably deserve.
But you can also go the other way, right? You can also take a look at May and June, and you can look at this front office and go, this is why you need to bring a frickin' good bullpen right from day one, right? Like, again, this bullpen did come together by the trade deadline, and I know that...
But it was the same bullpen at the start of this year that was good at the end of last year.
Yes.
Right? The bullpen is just a crapshoot.
They're a crapshoot, absolutely.
I don't know what the right answer is this offseason in terms of this bullpen, but
thank God we're not GMing this team, buddy. Like
everybody is agreeing with you right now. Thank God these two comedians from Alberta are not running the team. All right. Next one comes in from Twitter. This is Jose Barrios' topic.
Yeah, right.
So at Twin to Win messaged us Saturday night and said, "Hey guys, tough loss for your Jays. I'm a Twins fan, but was rooting for the Jays with my team not making the playoffs. I found your channel last year during the Jose Barrios trade and actually started tuning in to see what's up with him and the Jays a few times a month. Great podcast, so thank you for that. I know you guys do a mailbag. My question is, how do Blue Jays fans deal with the yo-yo of emotions that is having Barrios on your team?"
Well, I think the easy answer to that is we didn't deal with it very well, right?
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not the best at handling Jose Barrios. And it's funny, too, because, listen, Barrios had a really bad season in comparison to what he has put up with the Twins. But that was one thing when Barrios was traded to us, was the comments blew me away. All of the Twins fans were like, enjoy the
Good
emotional turmoil that this man will put onto your life, right? I guess, and because he has shown glimpses of brilliance, of dominance, of ace-like potential, of when he is able to locate all four of his pitches and move them up and down in the zone and left to right, the guy is truly the best pitcher on this Blue Jays staff.
I'm not looking at his stats right now, so don't quote me on this. But if I had to guess, I would say there's 5 games this season where he pitched into the 8th inning. And I would say there are 5 games this year where he didn't pitch past the 2nd.
Can we get that closer to his bad games being 5 innings of 4-run ball? You know, like if Jose Barrios blowing up is giving up 4 runs and giving us 5 innings, that is the Jose Barrios I'm after, right? Instead of Jose Barrios blowing up and giving up 4 runs in an inning and a third.
Hey, I mean, I guess the good news of getting swept in 2 is we didn't have to second guess Barrios or Stripling in Game 3 all off season. So
yeah, right.
That was never a concern to be dealt with. Jose
I'm
Barrios,
so bummed out right now, man. Like I'm just talking this. I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe they lost. Well, up 8-1. Who loses when up 8-1?
Have you watched, this is a little bit off topic, but stay with me. I'll bring it back here. Have you watched the new Jeffrey Dahmer series on Netflix?
I have not.
All right. Well, spoiler alert. He doesn't survive his life. Nobody does, by the way. But there is a scene in that movie after Jeffrey Dahmer has been beaten to death in prison where his dad has to come and identify the body. And it's an emotional thing, and like his face is all smashed in. Sorry, kids that are watching this. But it's a very like emotional thing of his dad identifying his son's body. And obviously it's a horrific thing, and his son was a monster, but still as a dad. And I feel like that right now. Going through the comments, I just feel like, all right, I get it. the team sucked. I don't want to have to identify the body here, and that's kind of what I feel like we're doing. So this is not fun for me, but it's a necessary evil.
You know what? If I was an English teacher, I'd give that metaphor 10 out of 10, bud.
Hey, thank you. All right. There's going to be someone in the comments, though, that's like, actually, that's a simile.
Yeah.
All right. Next couple comes.
Why I'm not an English teacher. Yes.
Next one comes in from our Patreon. So John says, I love that we have fun, nice guys in the clubhouse, but do you think Batista or Donaldson would have stood for some of our seasonal lows and game-costing misplays? Heck no, they wouldn't. They'd have put a little healthy fear into these young guys. We do have veteran leaders like Chapman and Springer, but they're more positive chemistry, lead by example types. This offseason, I'd like to see us bring in a veteran presence who understands the winning at all costs mentality. Someone who's going to call a spade and make things uncomfortable when the young players do young player crap.
So I like this comment, and John's awesome. Kelowna John.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely knows this Jays team inside and out. He's a big ball fan. One thing I do want to point out here between, and everyone knows this, but I think it is good to just kind of keep this in mind when you're comparing the 2015-16 Blue Jays and their runs to the competitive window of the team we're watching right now. Okay? The three players he just mentioned were the core. Edwin Encarnacion, Joey Bats, Bringer of Rain.
Mm-hmm.
In 2015, Josh Donaldson turned 30 years old. Edwin Encarnacion was 33, and Jose Batista was 34. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. this season was 23 years old. Alejandro Kirk, 23 years old. Bo Bichette, 24 years old. Alek Manoah, 24 years old. So there is a decade worth of experience that had been accumulated by the core of that 2015-16 core that didn't exist for our guys this season. And I know it's not exactly, but let's be serious, it's right around 30 years of experience combined. That's a frickin' lot. So maybe John is onto something. Maybe Springer is more of the glue that brings this clubhouse together, and they do need a big bad dad, 36-year-old who's going to take a kid by the collars and kind of like, and I don't even know if when you're talking Gen Z, if that's how if they respond to that anymore, right? Like the suck it up buttercup style of coaching or leading that guys like you and I grew up with, Adam, in our tenure in sports. It's changed now. It's different. And I don't know if it would work. And maybe it would. Maybe this is what this team lacks. You'd hope that guys like John Schneider and George Springer are already bringing that to the table, though. You really do.
All right. Couple
Where
thoughts.
are you at on this?
Couple thoughts here for me is that I don't know how effective an outsider can be. Like, to bring in that big bad daddy discipline guy, that sounded so much kinkier than I meant it. So. All right. So big bad daddy shows up.
Daddy.
Big bad daddy in his leather jacket shows up. Spanking the kids. Oh dear. Anyways.
All right, reel her in.
A Manny Machado type, right? Who can go to Fernando Tatis Jr., get up in his grill and say, hey, we don't do that here.
This isn't about you, yeah.
I don't know how an outsider can do that with this core the way it is, right? With Gurriel, with Biggio, Espinal, like all these kids who came up together, like they've got their chemistry. So for an outsider to come in, that would be really hard to do, I think.
Such a good point.
You would
Such
need,
a good point, Adam.
You would need, honestly, like someone like a Max Scherzer or a Justin Verlander, someone with just an unquestionable resume, right?
Just
A
to
first
show our
ballot
work
Hall
here.
of Famer to come in and have any chance, I think, of really changing the tone of this clubhouse.
And just to help build your case even further, look at what this club wound up doing with Charlie Montoyo. Right? Look at how this team improved when John Schneider took over. The guy that they had chemistry with, the guy that they'd been through the trenches with in the minors. I don't think that they were necessarily not on board with Charlie, but there was a definite shift in the clubhouse when John took over.
And we'll get into this. We're going to talk John Schneider a bit more with the pitching decision later in the episode. But yeah. I do want to say I do think John Schneider is our best chance at a big bad daddy who can discipline these guys because he's been with them through AA, through AAA. He came up with them. So he's not the outsider. We did see the first glimpses of that, like when Vladdy watched his double off the wall, and to just have him be kind of publicly scolded, right? I think if John Schneider does get the extension that I think he should get, I think it comes with a feather in the cap saying, look, we stand behind you, but you need to get these kids in check. Like, it is now time to buckle down. And I think he's our best chance at having someone that can do that. I don't think there is any other player that we can bring in who can be a raw guy. I don't think there's another outside man. I don't think bringing in Joe Girardi can come in, kick over a Gatorade cooler.
You're almost starting over at that point, because if you do bring in that big bad dad, right, whether it's a player or new management, you almost got to give them a little bit of leeway too. And what Jays fans want is 2023 to be the year, right? So like, you bring in a Joe Girardi, how can you just like expect instant chemistry with this new guy, right?
You know what? Sticking with this like dad John metaphor,
Schneider,
Joe Girardi would be like a mean stepdad coming into the picture,
right,
when you're already 13 and rebellious. It's like, who the hell do you think you are, right? Like, you haven't been through all this with me. You can't send me to my room right now.
You're not my dad.
You're not my dad, right? But John Schneider, has been there, and maybe. And
we saw glimpses of that too. And I mean, you bringing up him calling out Vladdy is a great example of that. Another example is him moving Vlad and Bo down the lineup. And I know all April, May, June, whenever this team was slumping, a lot of us were saying, why do you not shake up this batting order? That was one thing that Charlie was very regimented in, was the order was the order. It didn't matter hot or cold. You were slotted into wherever you were slotted in on day 1. You were slotted into on day 80. You were slotted into on day 162. And to watch him be able to communicate with these kids that he had come up through the ranks with, we're going to move you down. The fact he moved Bo back up to the 2-hole when he got hot says a lot, right? Mm-hmm. It shows you, if you disappoint, you're going to be moved down in the order, but you are going to be given the opportunity to win back the trust of this management. And I think that does go a long way. I'm with you. Like, I really do get what John is saying. Like, it's a good point. And maybe even 5 years ago, that's how you would shake up a group of kids that aren't really clicking the way you want them to. I just don't know if that's how you would do it with this generation now, but we'll move on.
No, I got one last thought that I want to add.
Yeah.
With the young core, I have heard this through professional athletes across all sports, whether it's football, whether it's hockey, whatever the case may be. When a young rookie comes into the league on a good Detroit Red Wings team or a good Houston Astros team or whatever the case may be, there can be a situation where they come in, they go on a Stanley Cup run, they win the Stanley Cup, and in their brain they go, oh, this is what professional sports is. We play all year long and then we go on this deep playoff run. Sometimes we drink champagne, sometimes we cry. and then they never get back to the playoffs again. And they play for 20 years.
Yes.
And they just expected it to be like playoffs at the end of the year, not golfing. And I think that this is me maybe being pessimistic, but there is a real opportunity here for some of these young kids to spend the next 15 years of their career kicking themselves. And I don't think they realize it yet. I think there's a situation where they came up, hot young team, were playoff contenders, were World Series contenders, whatever the case may be. But once this team does get blown up, right? Like once the core is actually gone, once Bo is playing in Colorado, he's going to have a real hard look in the mirror and go, I'm never getting to the playoffs again. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be a tough pill to swallow. And I don't think a lot of them appreciate that yet. That, as much as the fans are like, hey, we got a playoff window here of maybe 4 or 5 years before this gets blown up. Like the players also need to realize that like once they're gone, they're not just getting traded to the Dodgers or to the Mets or whatever. Like they might be in Arizona. They might be in Detroit.
Listen, since the Toronto Blue Jays inception in 1977, this organization has made the playoffs 9 times. Okay? That's in 45 years. So about 20% of the time you make the playoffs. And yes, this Blue Jays core, this organization right now is in a window. And I think you summed it up really well that, these young guys have gone through the growing pains of getting to where they are, but now they truly feel like, okay, here we are. This is going to be every year now, and that's not necessarily the case. And you can't blow 8-1 leads.
You can't.
And there's a lot of blame to go around. Listen, I know that there's a lot of people calling for John Schneider's head because of his decision with Gausman. And, of course, we're going to get into that because there's a pile of it there. I know there's a ton of people saying trade Bo. He made a huge mistake running as hard as he could and getting in Springer's way. I know there's a lot of people who say Tim Meza and Anthony Bass, line him up. Let's get the firing squad going. Listen, there are a lot of reasons why you need a lot of reasons to collapse in the 6th after having an 8-1 lead. Like there's not one person to blame here. This was a team effort to lose.
Team effort.
Like they lost. But anyways, I know we got a pile of comments, so let's get to them.
Next one comes in from Wyatt on our Patreon as well. Says, hey guys, first off, just want to start off by saying that watching your guys' video after the Jays loss on Saturday made me laugh and feel better. I guess knowing that I wasn't the only one who cried in the shower from that gut-wrenching loss was comforting. Time heals all wounds, and Jays fans will recover with the warmth of spring training. Second, this year's season end feels much worse than last year's for sure, and I am rooting for the Guardians now. Not because I want them to win so much, but I just want the Yankees to lose. My man.
Here.
Play the gif of Scott doing this. All right. My question for Monday's mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon is, do you think that this wild card game loss, the front office views change? Sorry. Do you think that this wild card game loss changes the front office views on any contract extensions for Schneider, Vladdy, or anyone else? Looking forward to more great content from you guys this offseason.
So, Wyatt, thank you so much, and eloquently put, and that was a nice little positive spin you put on, and it is true. Time heals all wounds. We will all recover, and because I know that I've been a masochist my entire life when it comes to rooting for my sports teams, I will be ready to be hurt again come spring training, and I look forward to that. As for, do I think that one game changed the opinion of this front office in any way? I think I'm going to go with no on that. I think that this front office was already well aware of the shortcomings of this team going into the playoffs. I think they made a calculated decision to not bolster this roster like maybe we were expecting them to or hoping they would come the trade deadline. I know that I personally was happy with their trade deadline, but wanted more done, right? Like the guys they brought in, I was good with. I think that they did a great job of going out and getting guys like Anthony Bass and Zach Pop, and even a guy like Mitch White, who, yes, didn't really do much for this team in 2022, but very well could be a contributing member of this Toronto Blue Jays organization come 2023 and 2024. He's a guy with some term. Whit Merrifield is back next year. He proved his value to this team and being a very versatile guy with some speed and some know-how, some experience behind him. You know, like I think it was a good trade deadline, but they didn't get a starting pitcher that could contribute right now. And that was huge. That was a big ball dropped. They didn't get a high velo bullpen piece. And listen, I don't even need it to be an experienced high velo guy. Go out there and get a guy who needs to work on his control but can throw 103 miles an hour. I think that this team, Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, and I could be completely off base here, I kind of feel like they took a look at this team and were like, 2023 is when we were really going to go all in. I don't know where you're at on that, Adam. I think that they are a very calculated bunch. I don't think that one game changes the way they view this team.
Yeah. I think they probably were disappointed the way all of us were. I mean,
I would hope so.
What a crappy way for it to go. But yeah, I'm with you. I think they probably recognized at the trade deadline that the prices were too high. You know, they didn't have the AAA talent in the minor leagues to spend on guys the way they wanted to. And I think they did their best at the trade deadline with not to apologize for them too much, but I think they came out of the trade deadline and were like, well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, we go all in next year. And I think it kind of just, they got what they got, you know,
It's going to be incredibly interesting to see the direction they take with extensions. I don't know if I have faith in this front office to make big extensions. They have yet to do it with anyone on this team. These free agent years are coming up. I know 2026 still feels like a long ways away, but it is not. It has a funny way of creeping up on you. We just watched the Braves extend Spencer Strider, who is kind of the equivalent of Alek Manoah to that organization. And it wasn't really a team-friendly deal. They just kind of bought up all his ARB years and added one extra year till his free agency. So if he does opt into the option year in 2029, then he'd be a free agent in that offseason. Alek Manoah set up exactly the same. He'll be a free agent in 2028. So I don't know if this team, the Braves, what Anthopoulos has done is locked up his core. And there's price certainty. So that everyone's making such a big deal out of this Strider signing, like he got such a great deal. I think the money's probably a wash as long as Strider turns out the way that they're predicting him to turn out. But it does create this certainty that they don't need to worry about, is ARB going to go up $2 million? Is ARB going to stay where it is? What's arbitration going to wind up at? It just adds that for sureness to the roster. And I haven't seen any signs that this Blue Jays front office is into that. I mean, they very well, it might be why they're not trading prospects, right? Is that they're like, Kate, if Vlad and Bo are walking away, we need guys coming up who can replace them. They're not afraid to spend money. I know there's a lot of people that are like, Rogers is never going to spend, but they were the 7th highest payroll in baseball this year. I know they're the 2nd richest team in all of baseball. I'm not defending them not spending more money. Personally, I think that they should be well above $200 million when it comes to their team payroll. I think that they should match the San Diego Padres. There's no reason for them. It's a bigger market. There's no reason for them not to be the Padres in the American League, which is a $205 million payroll. The Jays were at, I think, 283 this year. There's something like 277 or 177, I should say, already earmarked for next year. So you hope that this ownership group, Rogers, steps up and gives more money. But I think it's kind of almost an entitled take to be like, they're not spending any money after watching them spend so much money on George Springer, Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios. I mean, they went out and they signed Marcus Semien to a pretty decent contract there for 1 year. You know, like Matt making the trade for Matt Chapman and then buying out his Arbiers. Like, they're not afraid to spend money. I just don't know if the extension thing is the way that this front office operates. Go ahead, Adam.
Just touching on the Matt Chapman thing, I think that how that all went down, I hope that this front office learns from that. I mean, Matt Chapman, love Matt Chapman.
Yes.
Great year, pushing 30 home runs, great defensively, whatever. Would I have rather had Jose Ramirez? Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
We know the Blue Jays were pursuing Jose Ramirez all off season. The
lesson here is bite the bullet. Bite the frickin' bullet.
Well, the lesson here is I think Matt Chapman was a little bit of a last minute panic move, right? Of like, we cannot have Kevin Biggio playing third base for us 100 times this year.
Thank God they recognized that. Yeah.
Which they did, yeah. So hat tip to them for making that season-saving trade, I would say. But hopefully lesson learned is they've got to be more aggressive. They can't wait until the last minute. If they have to overspend a little bit or, go a little bit further on their negotiation side of, whatever the trade deal is to get I'm not saying they're going to get Shohei Ohtani. I don't think he leaves LA this year. But like, if that's their guy, if they have a guy in mind that they want to get, they need to go get him and get him earlier, because I think that really impacted this team.
I mean, it's what Preller did. It's what Preller did in San Diego.
Right? Yeah. So go get your guys. Be aggressive this offseason, whether that's in money or in prospects or whatever the case may be. But I hope they learn that lesson. I hope they go hard and early.
Couldn't agree more. Well put.
All right. Next couple comments here. And we had dozens of comments on this topic. But this is the Bo Bichette George Springer collision. So I've just pulled a couple comments here that kind of covered the topic. So first one from Scott Carter. The collision is 100% Bo's fault. Does anybody disagree? I believe he should issue a public apology for that bonehead play. And Ken Patterson says, figured they would blow it like this. Maybe next year will be better with all the experience. I also had a weird thought with Bo screwing up yet again, going for a ball that's not his. Will they trade him?
So, to start with, these comments were from our video Saturday night right after the loss.
Mm-hmm.
Fiery comments. I know we were feeling it too. I guess the long and short of it, man, is honestly, it was a play that sucked. It was a play that probably wouldn't happen in 1,000 other. You could run that exact same scenario 1,000 times and not have that outcome. The Rogers Center is known, especially with the roof closed, at how loud it gets in there. And you could just tell neither of them could hear each other screaming that they've got the ball. Was that technically George Springer's ball? Yes. They were both going 110%. I don't know, man. Like, I'm not saying that Bo is without blame on that. Obviously, that is Bo Bichette's fault. He's going to need to deal with that this whole offseason. If you don't think Bo Bichette isn't constantly replaying that in his head over and over and over again, I don't think you know what kind of young man that guy is, because he truly is a dude who wants to bring a championship to this Toronto Blue Jays team. He is. I have faith in Bo Bichette. Do I think that one play is going to make the organization consider trading him? I really don't. That said, Adam and I are not super well connected, but we have some people who come on the show who have some sources. Okay, we'll be very honest. There was talk from these sources that Bo Bichette was on the trade block around the All-Star break, leading up to the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. I don't know how valid those rumors are, but I think that this front office is at a point right now where we very well could see a Roberto Alomar, Joe Carter style trade, a Kawhi Leonard style trade, the push your chips in style trade. And if that happens, there may be some very instrumental pieces from this 2022 team going the other way. You don't get talent without trading talent. And could Bo Bichette be that guy? It's possible. We don't have a crystal ball here. And again, Adam and I cannot reiterate enough that we're just boneheads that are just making shit up as we go. But does it stem to reason that if this front office sits down and decides that they do need a shakeup and they do need to go in a slightly different direction when it comes to the clubhouse and the personnel within it, could Bo Bichette be on the block? Yeah. Say it. What are you thinking? You disagree.
No, I just... Look, I've been very critical of Bo Bichette all season long. I think he's a great baseball player with a capital G and a capital 8. That particular play, okay, and I know I don't look like an athlete anymore, but I did grow up playing ball, pretty high level ball. I was always taught as a kid, like I played shortstop. I was always taught in a fly ball over your head situation, you go for it and you go as hard as you can until you get called off.
Yep.
That's all Bo Bichette was doing in that situation. He is one of our star players trying to make a star play. He put in AAA, and I don't mean that in like a minor league sense. I mean like in the grading of a steak sense, right? Yes. Like he put in the best effort you could hope for, right? He doesn't know, like when he doesn't know where George Springer is behind him when that ball leaves the bat.
No.
Right? He sees a ball that he thinks he has a shot at, and he's going hard for it.
I've played that play over and over again, probably 6-7 times now with the sound on. Dude, you can't, like, how can they hear each other? Like, it is so loud.
It's so loud in there. I haven't seen any definitive angle where George is calling him off, saying that's mine. As an outfielder, I've also played center field. You're taught to go for it and don't call for it until you know you have it.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen countless times, not just with the Jays, but across all of baseball in the major leagues. This happens where you know, like imagine the reverse of that play where both guys pull up, right? Like we had a comical collision, you know, thank God, like no like real life-threatening injuries or anything happened, but you know, the opposite is that both guys assume the other guy's going to get it, and it's a, you know, bloop single, 2 runs still score because there's 2 out, right? So everybody's going hard, right? 2 runs out or a 2-run score. We're still in a situation like why did nobody go for it, right? Like we're just
and that is my only criticism on that play is freaking look at the score. Okay, it's 9-6. Listen, if that was a 9-9 game, that collision is a lot more forgivable.
Yeah.
Because they are going, but like play the score, right? Like had Springer just pulled up a little and played that on a bounce, 1 scores, maybe 2, right? And then it's a 9-8 game. And I know they lost 10-9, and that by the things that happened in that game that created this loss. Again, this was not, you can't pinpoint one play. Like, and I know there's lots of people blaming one thing or another, right? But like, and I know this because we comb through the comments, and my God, so I don't know. I guess that we talked about this for quite some time, but like, just to sum up this play, it's your 2-star players going full out for a ball. It's hard to really. It's hard to get so upset with them that you hope the front office trades one of them.
And George Springer is never once in his career been the guy to play it safe.
No.
Right? Coming off an injury, he's still the guy diving headfirst into the wall, right? Like, we saw it literally an inning earlier where, bangs in to make the wall or make the catch at the wall. He's grimacing, holding his wrist as he's coming off, right? Like, maybe Jackie Bradley Jr. plays it safe. Maybe, but I don't think it's fair to crap all over Bo Bichette for giving it 110% because that's what you want your guys to do. I don't want a shortstop on our team who's not going for it.
Agreed.
So, all right, let's move on from there then. Unless you have anything else you want to add.
No, I mean, no.
I know people are going to disagree with us or agree with us. Let us know in the comments. Next one comes in from Guru Shishya. Apologies for butchering your name there.
Good attempt.
For the mailbag, do Atkins and Schneider survive this postseason collapse? And if so, do you agree with keeping them for next season? Thanks.
Okay, well, let's start with Ross Atkins. He was just given a 5-year contract extension.
He's not going anywhere.
Last offseason, the second that Rogers gave Mark Shapiro his contract extension. Ross Atkins is Shapiro's guy.
Yep.
So, no, he's not going anywhere. In fact, I think he's pretty safe for at least the next couple of years. Even, honestly, I think Ross Atkins is safe if the Blue Jays don't make the playoffs next year, which is probably a little too safe if you ask me. Do I think that Atkins should be fired right now? No, probably not. I mean, you look at what they have laid out as their timeline. They're pretty on time with it. You look at the way they have built this team. It's a pretty well-built team. Are there holes? Are there deficiencies? Yeah, we've just seen them firsthand. Are they going to go about fixing it? I mean, they have the last couple off seasons tried to address their areas of need. As for John Schneider, and I think you touched on it a little bit, Adam, I think he's probably the guy. I don't know if he's necessarily the guy I want, but I don't think that it's going to speed anything up if we replace him. And so if you're just going to stick with the same timeline, John Schneider is probably the guy you go with. And he's probably the guy you go with for the next couple years, right? It looks pretty bad on a front office if they're constantly cycling through managers. And I know Ben Ennis touched on this yesterday when we had him on the show. And we asked him straight up, do you think John Schneider's back? And he was like, I really do. And the biggest reason for that is the optics, right? Like, you fire Charlie halfway through the season, you fire Schneider after the season, especially after the way this team played for Schneider in September, which was, we touched on this earlier in the show, right? The whole reason this team was even in the playoffs was because of the incredible September that they put up. So me personally, if I'm a betting man, John Schneider's back. Ross Atkins is here until Mark Shapiro's gone, or until Mark Shapiro's feeling heat from the ownership, and then maybe he makes a move.
Yeah.
Because, self-preservation's job one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I actually do like Atkins. I know there's a lot of Alex Anthopoulos fans that still yearn for those days, but he's gone, so get over it.
Yeah.
Like, we've had a lot of terrible general managers.
Yes.
I could tell you
and he's not one of them. Yes, Ross Atkins is not one of them.
I can tell you as a Montreal Canadiens fan, having a terrible GM is there's no hope. It's painful to be a hopeless fan where you just don't have any faith in the guy steering the ship, right? And part of sports and management in general is being able to manage past today and manage past tomorrow, right? And set plans in motion that might pay off 2 years from now, and being able to reap the rewards of those plans, right? As long as they're good plans. But if it's a revolving door of managers, man, like you can't have a guy that comes in with a new strategy every 2 years and you know, now the last guy's plans are paying off, but we've already moved on to something else, so it doesn't matter.
And we touched on this, right? Dynasties are not built overnight. Winners are not built overnight. The framework of what Ross Atkins has done is very admirable. I am all on board with it. Is Ross Atkins perfect? Fuck no. My God. Are there things I wish that he strategically viewed differently? Yes. Bullpen being a big one. His view of the bullpen is very different from what I would hope that it would be. He truly does like guys who give a different look. I'm all for it. I like Adam Simber. I like Tim Meza. I think that the way that they throw the ball does give a unique look and a tough at bat. Do I wish there was more velo in the bullpen? Yes. Do I wish that they had a few more options to go to when it comes to left-handers? Yes, I do. Are these things that are going to be addressed in the offseason? Maybe. Like, I don't know, man. I do believe in what Ross Atkins is doing.
I think Schneider's safe. I know it doesn't look good to keep doing new managers. I think Atkins can get away with it once, saying, well, Schneider was never going to be our guy. We just needed something to get us through the season. So there is the possibility they let him go. They say or retain him, you know, as a whatever, assistant coach type role, whatever. Yeah. But bring in a Madden or a Girardi or whoever. And but then that guy that's the guy, whoever the next manager is, whether it's Schneider or anybody else, that's the guy that Atkins is putting his stamp of approval on, and that guy needs to work out because he's already put his stamp of approval on Charlie. That didn't work out.
You get 2 stamps as a general manager before you start getting some heat.
We always say you get 2 stamps. So, but that being said, I think Schneider is probably the guy. I think he did a great job with a really good team the second half of the year after taking over. I think he needs to enter next season with a different approach, or like a more focused approach, knowing that, okay, I'm the guy, and he needs to have a better strategy on.
And management learns too, right? Like there is growing pains when it comes to building a team, just like there is with managing a team, just like there is with being on that team and learning how to win. So hopefully this is just another step towards the promised land, is the dream.
Ross Atkins does have a press conference scheduled for today, so who knows? By the time anybody sees this clip, maybe he will have already announced that Tony La Russa is not retiring and is coming to Toronto. But anyways, we'll have answers later today, I'm sure.
Okay.
All right. A couple more to get to still. A couple more topics. This one comes in on Tim Meza. Okay, so a couple comments here. I'll read all 3 and then we'll dive into it. But Mr. B.D. Acuna says, serious question that I hope someone can answer. What is Meza's record for stranding inherited runners? Because based on me watching nearly every game this season, I'm certain he's at the top for most inherited runners allowed in. Pulling Gossman completely destroyed the game. Jason Chung says, I put this debacle on John Schneider. He should have let Gossman pitch out the inning and then see how he felt. Also, Meza and Bass, you had one effing job. And Dulcimerist says, In Mesa's defense, he was put in to face a switch hitter who happens to be much better against lefties. He was put into a situation in which he was less likely to succeed than the right-handed pitcher he was replacing. So, a lot to dissect here. Dozens of comments that basically echoed this sentiment.
So let's start with Tim Mesa.
Okay.
Because Adam did his work.
I did my homework. Don't always do it, but I did this time.
He's going to show his work. So, and this is the one thing with stats and numbers, right? Is that no matter how you emotionally feel or your eye test of the season, sometimes those numbers will throw it right back in your face. And that's kind of what it's doing with the commenter here. What was his name again? H.U.
Don't make me say it again.
Like.
Mr. B.D. Acuna.
Okay. So, Mr. B.D. Acuna, these numbers are probably going to surprise you, but Adam, go ahead with his inherited runners.
If we're looking at the leaderboard, AL leaders, percentage inherited runners scored, Jason Adam of the Rays, number 1, 9% allowed. He's allowed inherited 31 runners, only allowed 3 to score. Tim Mesa, number 9 in the league for inherited runners scored. He's inherited 36 runners this season and allowed 8 to score, 22%. Best on the Blue Jays.
Best on the Blue Jays and number 9 in all of baseball. So, Mr. Acuna, I understand your frustration. However, that comment just doesn't line up with the numbers at all. And this actually surprised me. I did not know this about Tim Mesa, but it does make so much more sense as to why John Schneider went to him in this scenario, right? If he is the best reliever on this Blue Jays team when it comes to preventing runs, when inheriting runners, that's the guy you probably want to go with.
Yeah.
Now, to the other guy's point where he was like, Tim Mesa, Anthony Bass, you had one frickin' job to do. Yeah, that's how we're all feeling, right?
I will say with Tim Mesa, too, and in defense of this commenter's comment, I felt the same way and was shocked to see this.
Yes.
Like, when I looked up the numbers, it was shocking here. We did get a super chat that I want to acknowledge here. Anime Heaven says, elite bullpens win championships. Look at the Kansas City Royals 2015 team with Herrera, Holland, and Davis shutting down everything after the 6th inning. Very good point. I don't know what that dollar symbol is. It says 500. I don't know if this is yen or what this dollar is. I don't think that's really $500. That feels too big. Either way. Whether it's $5 or $500, we appreciate the
super chat. Absolutely. Very much. Yeah, thank you so much.
Tim Mesa, I just want to look at his splits here versus lefties and righties. Carlos Santana, phenomenal musician, even better switch hitter. Are you sure that John Schneider was aware of the fact Carlos Santana was a switch hitter?
He frickin' better have been.
I know I texted you and Hey Kami in our group chat here that the same question, and Hey Kami's reply was something like, nobody in the Jays organization knows what a switch hitter is, which made me laugh.
Yeah.
But Carlos Santana hits predominantly left, but can hit right-handed. Mm-hmm. Was hitting left-handed all game versus Gossman, who's a righty. But when they bring in the left-handed Tim Mesa, Carlos Santana instead hits right-handed. So looking at his splits as a right-handed hitter or as a left-handed hitter, big difference. Carlos Santana as a left-handed hitter, batting average this year, 178 with an OPS of 655. But batting as a right-handed hitter against lefties, batting average 265 with an OPS of 789. So
they turned him around
better.
To his strong side.
That's the thing that is hard to wrap your mind around, and I can't believe that this feels like this has to have been an oversight. They didn't realize in the moment that he's a switch hitter, because I don't know why you would turn him around to his strong side. Also, when we look at Tim Meza's pitching splits versus righties versus lefties, Tim Meza
Dominant against lefties.
Yeah, Tim Meza versus left-handed batters. Opposing batting average 162 with an OPS of 502. Okay? Lights out. But versus righties, which again is Santana's strongest side, Tim Meza's stats, opponent batting average 291, an OPS of 818.
Wow.
So we made Santana hit from his better side against Tim Meza, who just in every metric, this was a bad matchup.
Truly. The only thing that stands out is that Tim Meza was the best in the Blue Jays bullpen at not allowing runners to score.
And there were 3 runners on at that point when he came in.
The bases were loaded. I mean, listen, did I hate that Schneider took Gausman out at 5 2/3 inning? Yeah, I was. He was at 96 pitches. Now, he had just struck 2 guys out. I remember the bases were loaded with nobody out. That was what upset me, was that there was nobody out and then Gausman almost got out of it. It's not like Gausman was absolutely deadly the whole game. He wasn't.
Yeah, this wasn't Blake Snell in the World Series.
That comparison is so off base. This was not Blake Snell, who had allowed 1 hit going into the 6th with 81 pitches. Okay? This is a guy that got in and out of trouble, did his job very well, don't get me wrong, but got in and out of trouble for the whole 6 innings he was in, was at 5 2/3 with 96 pitches. And again, if John Schneider truly did not realize that Santana was a switch hitter, and not only that he was a switch hitter, but that he hit better from the right-hand side, then that is unforgivable. But you don't know what their analytics said. I don't know. Again, I'm not defending Schneider here, but
yeah, it was a weird one. I guess, would you have rather it? You leave Gausman in. Let's just say he doesn't get out of it right away. Right? Let's say Santana gets a base hit, 2 runs score because it's 2 outs, so everybody's going on contact, right? And then maybe you get the next guy out. Right? Okay, so you gave up 2 runs, it's 8-3, but now your bullpen's coming in with a clean inning with more time to warm up, I guess. This is one thing that I saw, and I think Blair and Barker were talking about yesterday. I didn't watch it that closely. I'd have to go back and relook. I don't know when Tim Meza started warming up, but they were wondering if he wasn't warm yet, if they brought him in and he wasn't ready.
Which, again, unforgivable.
Yeah, unforgivable is the only way to put it.
But I mean, this is again how this is how you blow an 8-1 lead. It's not one decision. It's not one mistake. It's a laundry list of oversight. It's a laundry list of poor moves at a wrong time. It's a laundry list of mistakes. This is why we're all so heartbroken. This is why this feeling within is so eminent.
Yep. So Simon in the live chat looked into it. 500 rupees, $8 Canadian. So very generous donation. We appreciate it. Scott Carter, also the super chat just now, $20 from Scott Carter. Thank you very much, Scott. It says, LOL, you crack it. Schneider was paid off to switch pitchers. All right. Thank you, Scott Carter. It made me laugh.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, and I mean, as for Tim Meza and Anthony Bass, this is the most frustrating thing about this entire scenario, is that literally from the trade deadline on, look into the numbers. You can scream about this bullpen and needing a better bullpen. The bullpen was a top 5 bullpen in all of baseball in the last 2.5 months of the season.
Anthony Bass had a good year, had a bad game at the end. You know what he reminds me of, though? Last year's Trevor Richards.
Yes.
Like, Trevor Richards was great for us. Or maybe really good. Maybe great's too generous. This year, not as good. This is where, like, the bullpen being a crapshoot thing is, like, we can't just go into next season and be like, well, we have Anthony Bass and Jimmy Garcia and we're good. Like, who knows what these guys are going to be next year? You need more options. So we'll see. All right. Couple last ones here, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, let's wrap up here shortly. We're getting bulky.
We're getting
girthy.
Bulky. Getting girthy once again. Edward Cadogan says, the thing that I don't get with the narrative
Cadogan. Sorry.
All right, Scott. Scott needs to go eat lunch. The thing I don't get with the narrative of keeping the 3 catchers is, how do you expect to improve your roster? We have a surplus at that position, and we need to add more starting pitcher and left-handed / switch hitters. We aren't going to be addressing our needs just by trading low-tier prospects.
So I agree. I couldn't agree more. I know that Ben Ennis was on the show last night, very generous with his time, very thankful for that, and he felt like they're going to do nothing. That he truly believes that Gabriel Moreno is going to be carried as a third catcher, kind of ease him into the big leagues, find him some. He kind of was like, everyone talks about Ben Zobrist and how great it is to have a versatile utility player who can play the infield and outfield. But what if you can have a guy who's playing catcher, playing some left, playing some third, playing some second, and how valuable that would be? And he does have a good point. You know what? There is definite value to that sort of versatility. However, you look at this lineup and the redundancy of that DH position is maddening. Right? Like, you need to have Alejandro Kirk in there half the time, maybe more. You need George Springer in there. I mean, my God. Like, George Springer is going to be a part-time right fielder next year, almost full-time DH is my prediction. And I could be full of shit. Adam and I cannot stress enough how little we actually know. But, we followed this team pretty hardcore our whole lives. And when it comes to that DH position, you need, in today's game, some versatility to move your players through the position. So locking it up with George Springer, even if it's a third of the time, is really limiting what you can do when you have a guy like Alejandro Kirk, who's an incredible hitter, but isn't going to play catcher every single game. He's not. I mean, no catcher does, but Alejandro Kirk, even at 23 with his body type, needs rest. So I think Kirk's the odd man out. I think his value is the highest it's going to be. I think there are teams out there who do feel that he can catch 3 out of 5 games in a rotation, which, if that's the case,
or maybe a team that just doesn't have $150 million invested in a full-time DH already.
There you go.
Right?
Exactly. And you know what? Again, I forget the commenter's name here, but he does make a good point. And how do you address other areas of need, especially if money isn't going to be increased all that much by Rodgers, right? Because if that's the case, then it's a lot of money swapping, trying to fill needs with areas of strength, which is catching.
Yeah,
Danny Jansen, I'm fully sold. I'm fully sold on Danny Jansen being our full-time catcher if he can stay healthy. I think that he's got the power to do it. His new approach at the plate has been incredible. We've watched his OPS move up to elite level for a catcher. We've seen him hit 15 bombs on less than half a season. This is a guy who manages the pitching staff incredibly well. And yeah, his framing needs work, but there's one more year until robo-umps? Like, literally, framing is going to be a thing of the past. As much as it upsets you and I and all the hardcore baseball fans out there, the skill of catching is going to be less important and more on the offensive output of that position.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I thought Kirk was going to be gone at the trade deadline. Nobody wanted to do it. He just started the All-Star game. His numbers did tail off in the second half of the year. Good, not great, is how I would describe his second half. We can't if we didn't have George Springer, it would be a different conversation.
Yeah.
I know the pushback, and like Ben got into this yesterday, and the people that I've heard who
The
are
other
defending
side.
Alejandro Kirk is saying, well, you need 3 catchers. If this year showed us anything, it's that you need 3 catchers. You don't need 3 elite catchers.
Yeah.
Like, if we got to put in
Chris Beck, our boy.
Chris Beck for 20 games, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Right? So,
especially if you've got Danny Jansen, who's creating offense at a higher than average level at the position, especially if you've got Gabriel Moreno, who can even just do what he did this year, which isn't necessarily give more offensive value, but at least break even. And then if your third catcher is a guy who just comes up and calls a really good game and has played 10 years in the minor leagues, Chris Beck, right? I think that's fine. Whose third catcher is the best prospect in baseball? Like, we're talking about an embarrassment of riches at this position, and I absolutely agree with the commenter that the Blue Jays should be using that area of strength to bolster areas of need.
And again, nothing against Alejandro Kirk. Love what he did for us this year.
Absolutely.
There are going to be uncomfortable changes. Maybe you're a Lourdes Gurriel fan, and he's not here next year. You know, maybe you're an Espinal fan. He was an all-star this year. Everybody loved Espinal.
Maybe you're a Danny Jansen fan and they go that route. I know I'll be upset, but like, listen, something's got to give. I don't think you can continue to roll out with this DH position so gummed up.
And then you still want to use it as the like alternating half day off for everybody else to give guys that half day off. I don't know. The way our roster's constructed, DH is so gummed up right now.
Yeah.
All right. Last one here, and then we're out of here. That's a quick one, Scott. The Power of Myth says Mariners or Astros. Who are you rooting for? Who are you rooting for in that series, and who are you rooting for the rest of the way in the playoffs?
I'm bitter, but not so bitter that I'm going to cheer for the Astros. I'm hoping the Mariners take that series. I don't think they will. I personally think they probably get swept, but I hope they don't. I'm my team right now that I'm hoping wins is the Guardians. I love Cleveland. I love the way that team is constructed. Jose Ramirez is such a stud. I love the pitching. The bullpen is just incredible. They've got that Emmanuel Clase is just, if he's not the best closer in baseball, he's a top 2-3 guy for sure, especially with the fall of Josh Hader. I mean, just everything, the way they put the ball in play, the way that they're so defensively sound, how they constantly win 2-1, 3-2 games. It's just an impressive team. And I love Terry Francona.
They outraised the Rays.
They outraised the Rays.
I'm right there with you. I think 2 for 2 on that. I'd take the Mariners over the Astros. I don't think it'll happen, but that's my preference. And I think I'd rather cheer for the Guardians the rest of the way.
And National League, go Padres.
Yeah, go Padres. Why not? They're the Blue Jays of the NL, so go Padres. Thanks everybody for sticking around for 80 minutes through this mailbag.
Yeah, this was
I know
a
it was a long one. 40 plus of you in the live chat right now. Appreciate all the likes and the interaction in the live chat.
Super
here.
chats. Thank you very much. A tip for the hat.
Before we go, I do want to just clarify, we have started a second channel here. So if you like the long form version of this video, that is going to stay here on this channel unchanged. We are going to be, I think what we were kind of doing over the last month, taking our stuff, putting it into more bite-sized portions, but those are now going to go to our second channel. So if you're interested in consuming this in 10 to 15 minute chunks instead, go check that channel out and subscribe over there. Appreciate it.
It's brand new. We started this yesterday. So if you are a fan of the channel, yeah, please go subscribe to the other one. Right now we're sitting at 0 or whatever subscribers. So every little bit helps there, but it is a much more consumable way of watching the program is in 10, 15-minute chunks. So feel free to do it that way. We really appreciate you. Much love to all our Patreon. Honestly, truly, mind-blowing how supportive all of you are. Adam's got the list of names here. And if not, he's going to scramble really quick to grab
I've got the list of names. Patreon.com/The Walkoff Podcast. Big thanks to Kyle, Joey, Patrick, Wyatt, John, Dunedin, Bob, Avraham, Michael, Sarah, John, Rashid, Joshua, Jeremy, and Ian. Thank you. We are going to keep the content coming all off season long. Lots to talk about. There will be news. There will be free agents leaving. There will be free agents coming. There will be trades going either way. There will be speculation. There you go. Walk off snack size channel.
Thank you so much, everybody. All the best. At Walk Off Podcast on Twitter, The Walk Off Podcast on Instagram. We're going to continue to have all sorts of incredible guests on the show. We really appreciate the time that they put in to talking to just a couple of boneheads out of Alberta, but we do really appreciate it. Of course, we've sat down with Danny Jansen, John Gibbons, Tim Meza. The list goes on and on. Everyone from Sportsnet. So if you haven't checked out